2 centuries before President-elect Biden takes his oath. The United States of America, the world's first modern democracy, elected its first president. America's founding fathers decided that one elected civilian, the US president, would lead the executive branch of the federal government, a governmental structure that has remained in place for more than 200 years. And so, George Washington took the presidential oath on the balcony of New York City's Federal Hall on April 30th, 1789. From then to now, Donald Trump as the 45th and Biden to be the 46th President of the United States, the post of POTUS has emerged as the most powerful political office in the world. While some of them went a little overboard, a few others were loved by the public, not just in the USA, but worldwide. After George Washington charted history, President Andrew Jackson became the only president to have been a prisoner of war. He has been on the $20 bill since 1928 and is known for founding the Democratic Party. In 1857, James Buchanan announced during his inaugural address that he would not run for a second term. He stayed true to his word, which may have been the right decision, as he is often ranked as one of the worst presidents in US history. But that was before Donald Trump could get counted. President Abraham Lincoln led America during the Civil War and ironically signed legislation creating the Secret Service hours before his assassination. President Franklin D. Roosevelt brought America out of the Great Depression. He led the US into World War II, and by the end of his unprecedented 4th term, he laid the groundwork for the United Nations. Roosevelt won a record 4 presidential elections while successfully hiding his physical handicap from the public. After President Roosevelt died in office, Vice President Harry S. Truman took charge. And during his 2 terms as the POTUS, USA dropped the atomic bombs on Japan, initiated the Marshall Plan to help Europe's economic recovery after the devastation of the Second World War, and formulated what is known as the Truman Doctrine, the posturing that set off the Cold War. Under President Truman, USA also embarked on the Korean War. The youngest ever President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, was very popular both at home and abroad. At his inaugural speech, he famously said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country."
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
During his time in office, USA increased their military intervention in Vietnam, though mostly in the advisory capacity. John F. Kennedy announced before a special joint session of Congress the dramatic and ambitious goal of sending an American safely to the moon before the end of the decade, something that he would not be able to see. On November 22, 1963, when he was hardly past his first 1,000 days in office, Kennedy was shot to death as his motorcade wound through Dallas, Texas. Despite improving relations with the Soviet Union and China and the conclusion of the Vietnam War, President Nixon is known primarily for the Watergate scandal and his resignation, the only president to have done so. Bill Clinton's presidency was one political crisis after the other. In 1993, Clinton and his First Lady Hillary were the subject of a Justice Department investigation into the so-called Whitewater controversy, a botched business deal from their days in Arkansas. In 1994, Clinton was sued for sexual harassment when he had been governor of Arkansas. It was then that the Monica Lewinsky case of sexual misconduct within the White House emerged. The 2 cases eventually led to his impeachment in 1998. President Clinton saved his office when he went public and apologized to America for having lied.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part for which I am solely and completely responsible.
After President Clinton's colorful tenure, George W. Bush took charge and then began America's tryst with terrorism. President Bush was in office when the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center went down in ashes and dirt. President Bush announced a world coalition against terror with the words, "Either you are with us or against us." He led the US into war and occupation in Afghanistan and Iraq. When President Bush's 2 terms came to an end, Barack Obama made history as the first African American President of the United States, POTUS.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States.
Obama took charge after the 2008 economic crisis and is credited for keeping the economy thriving during his 2 terms. It was during President Obama's time in the office that the 9/11 funder Osama bin Laden was captured and executed by the US Army. Obama's popularity ratings remained high throughout his term in office.